Okay, so I'm going to be showing you two shots here. The first shot you can see is on this mannequin where we're firing this strobe, and I'm firing this strobe bare. So this doesn't have a modifier on top of it. So this shot is going to demonstrate how hard light looks in photography. And then we have the second shot which I'm going to be showing you, in which I fired, and this time I put the modifier on top of the strobe. So this shot will demonstrate how soft light looks in photography. So let's see these two shots. So this is the hard light shot, and you can see how you can come to know when something is shot under hard light is when you look at shadows. So when anything is shot under hard lights, the shadows are going to look very defined and very bad. So you can see here, since the strobe is firing from the right hand side, we've got the shadows of course on the left side, but these shadows are very strong and prominent, and they just don't look good to the eye of the viewer, and neither do they look good on the subject. And you can see even the shadows here, they're very harsh, right? If I just zoom in here. And another thing is that the bright parts of the subject, that is the highlights. So there are two things, highlights and shadows. If you've done my DSLR photography for beginners course, I've discussed this there also. But right now all you have to understand is that overall, the highlights are looking harsh. Like for example, if I zoom into this glossy lip surface, you can see this hot spot also here, which is another characteristic of hard light. And the shadows just don't look good. So overall this shot looks very uneven to the eye. Just look at the highlights on the hair also. You're getting these hot spotty looks, and it just overall doesn't look good. Right now, let's compare this with the soft light shot, which is this one where I put the modifier on. Now you can see that this shot immediately looks much better than the last shot. So if I just zoom in here, you can see the shadow, the bad looking shadow is completely gone, and it has been replaced by this soft shadow. So that's what the modifier does. It just turns hard light into soft light. And later on we'll be discussing in this course, there's a video, very elaborate video on the inverse square law of light, where you'll actually be understanding why something is hard, why something produces soft light. So there you'll know the technical parts of this. Right now I just want to show you what a modifier does and how things look when they go from hard to soft. Now if you notice this hot spot also, you can see that it is widened, right? So it's much more spread out now. That's what soft light does. Even the highlight here looks on this part of her face looks much more even overall, and the shadows here, if you see in the neck part, are also very gradual. So they fade away and they are not too defined, and this just overall gives a much more pleasing effect. Just look at the hair also. This is it doesn't have that hot spot look. It has, these are also referred to as specular highlights, like these and all, which hard light can produce. So you're not getting any of those hot spots or those specular highlights as you did in this hard shot. So let me do a back and forth so that you can see. This is the hard light shot. Look at the the bad looking highlights in the hair and these hot spots here, the bad looking shadows. And the moment I turn this to the next shot, you can see that this immediately looks way better, just because we've put the modifier on the strobe, which has converted this into soft light. So again, this is the hard light and this is the soft light. So I hope that this demonstrates to you why using a modifier like, let's say, an umbrella or a softbox is important. Later on, like I told you, when we'll be learning about the inverse square law of light, you'll also be seeing that we just don't have to settle for this. We can even make this light more soft by using a bigger softbox. And why is that the case? You'll be learning in that video. So we'll always, as a photographer, should always try to get the softest light possible, because that's what works in 90% of the cases. Sometimes in some types of photography, hard light is also used, where you would actually light shadows and all, but though that's a separate affair. In this course, we'll mainly be focusing on soft light, because that's what's usually used in photography, and wherever hard light is required, I'll also be talking about that later on. So I just hope that this part helped you to understand the difference between hard light and soft light, and why a modifier is so important. So I'll see you in the next part, where we'll be discussing about the backdrop for your home studio. I'll see you there.